Reggie Harding was a talented basketball player, but that was pretty much all he focused on. During high school, the 7-footer led his team to 3 straight city titles, but due to poor grades, he was ineligible for college. Even after a year of prep school, his grades still weren't good enough, so he decided to turn pro, becoming the first player to be drafted out of high school, as he was selected by his hometown Pistons in 1962. Early on, he had solid production, even being regarded as a top 5 center in his second year, but his NBA career would be brief, as he had several legal issues and he constantly fell out with coaches. After he was arrested for assault and battery against a cop in 1964, he was suspended for an entire year, but after he was reinstated, he still couldn't stay out of trouble, as by 1968, Reggie's basketball career was over at just 26 years old. Now without basketball, he drifted around town, often hanging around the wrong people, as this would lead to his murder at only 30 years old. Welcome to PC Hoops, and let's get down to it. Reggie was born on May 4, 1942 to a 17-year-old Lily Mae Thomas, but since she wasn't married, her parents forced her to put him up for adoption, where he would be taken in by the Harding family. Reggie wanted to play basketball, but he was too shy to play with the kids at his school, so he was mentored by his neighbor Bill Irvin, who would help him hone his skills. By the time Reggie got to Eastern High School in 1958, he was 7 feet tall, the first player of his size in Michigan, as he was a great rebounder. He led his team to 3 straight city championships, as by the time he was a junior, he was considered the greatest high school player ever produced in Detroit's public school league. But off the court, Reggie was already getting into trouble, as he used his size to bully the smaller kids, and he already had several run-ins with the law already. But his most egregious offense happened in 1960, when he met Florence Ballard, a member of the Supremes. He offered her a ride home from a dance, but instead of taking her to her house, he sexually assaulted her at knife point. Since she was 15 at the time, Reggie was charged with statutory rape, but he would say that the sex was consensual, and he was acquitted of the charges. This incident would drive Florence into alcoholism and depression that led to her early death in 1976. Although Reggie was a star on the basketball court, his grades were bad, as even though his playing eligibility was over in March 1961, he wasn't expected to graduate until January 1962. He said that he received 135 college offers, but he was academically ineligible, so he decided to go to Nashville Christian Institute, a prep school in Nashville. He was playing basketball there until it was discovered that he didn't have any high school eligibility left, as his grades were still too low for college. With no other options, he decided to put his name in the draft, as he was picked 29th overall by the Detroit Pistons in 1962, making him the first high schooler drafted in NBA history. But the NBA immediately challenged the pick, as at the time, the rule stated that a player needed to be out of school for at least a full year. Reggie's prep school stint brought this into question, and he wasn't able to sign with the team. However, the NBA Board of Governors ruled that the Pistons could retain his player rights, but he couldn't sign with them until 1963. In the meantime, Reggie played in the Midwest Professional Basketball League, suiting up for the Toledo Tartans and the Highland Oilers. After the season, he was selected by the Pistons again in 1963 with the 48th pick. He would finally sign with the team, but he was kept off the roster for a while he dealt with multiple charges, including car theft, weapons possession, and breaking and entering. Reggie was touring with the Harlem Road Kings when the NBA allowed him to join the Pistons on January 18, 1964. Detroit wasn't that good, but they had some great players in Bailey Howe, Don Ole, Ray Scott, and a young Dave DeBusschere. Reggie became the starting center by his 4th game, as he would play pretty well, dropping 16 points and 16 rebounds on January 28th against the Lakers. His best game of the season would be a 23-point and 19-rebound performance on February 24th against the Celtics. He had 13 double-doubles on the season, but the Pistons were terrible on both sides of the ball, finishing 23 and 57. Reggie averaged 11 points, 10.5 rebounds, and 1.5 assists. Reggie had high expectations heading into 1964, as he was considered to be a match for the top big men in the league. As Red Auerbach would say what they want to about all the fine big fellas coming out of college in 1964, but the Pistons already have a guy who will probably outshine them all. Reggie continued to play his role, as he had 5 double-doubles in the first 20 games, including 20 points and 19 rebounds on November 28th against Philly. His best game of the season was on January 19th against Philly again, with 22 points, 21 rebounds, and 3 assists. Reggie had 22 double-doubles, and he was also showing that he can pass, dishing 5 or more assists in 5 games, including a career-high 8 assists on March 3rd against the Warriors. Reggie finished the season ranked 11th in rebounding, as 24-year-old DeBusschere took over as the player coach. Detroit was still bad, finishing 31 and 49 on the season. Reggie averaged 12 points, 11.5 rebounds, and 2.5 assists, But this season wasn't without any off-the-court issues, as Reggie would consistently sleep through practices, even missing a flight for a game against Baltimore. It wouldn't end there, as in August 1965, he was charged with assault and battery against a policeman while contesting a parking ticket. The next month, the NBA suspended him indefinitely, and after he was found guilty of the charges, the Pistons fined him $2,000, the biggest fine in pro basketball history at the time. Reggie would miss the entire 1965 season. He was reinstated in September 1966, as he was threatening to sue the league if he wasn't allowed to return. He signed a one-year $15,000 contract, as Dave was elated to have him back, calling him the fifth best center in basketball, behind Wilt, Bill Russell, Walt Bellamy, and Nate Thurmond. When Reggie returned, the Pistons had a new rookie guard in Dave Bing from Syracuse. Ray Scott and John Strouder shared most of the center minutes, so Reggie had a smaller role this year. He had 5 double-doubles, with his best performance coming on March 3rd against Philly, when he had 12 points, 15 rebounds, and 3 assists. Bing won the Rookie of the Year, and Dave relinquished his coaching duties late in the season. Detroit had the lowest scoring offense in the league, so they finished 30-51. Reggie averaged 5.5 points, 6 rebounds, and 1.5 assists. In the offseason, Reggie was traded to the Chicago Bulls for a third-round pick. He would become the backup center behind Jim Washington, but his tenure with the team would be extremely short, only lasting 14 games. He was granted a leave to attend the funeral of his adoptive mother, but when he overstayed the leave, the Bulls waived him in December. In January of 1968, Reggie took his talents to the ABA, signing with the Indiana Pacers. Even with the change of scenery, his volatile personality came to light, as he would threaten to shoot the general manager Mike Storin, while also pulling a gun on teammate Jimmy Rail while they were rooming together. Roger Brown said of Harding, "He was a clown, but he had talent. He was really physical and mean, but we couldn't keep him on the court." Ollie Darden was asked to keep watch over Harding, as he fed him, gave him clothes, and took him to games when he could be found. Although he had several behavioral issues, he was producing on the court. Reggie dropped 18 points, 27 rebounds, and 3 assists on February 7th against the Americans. Then he had the best game of his career on March 13th against the Muskies, with 30 points, 22 rebounds, and 2 assists on 71% shooting. Reggie was fined by the Pacers multiple times, and he was suspended throughout the playoffs after he continually missed practices. He would be waived by the team at the end of the season. At 26 years old, Reggie's basketball career was over, as he had even developed a heroin addiction during his suspension. In 1969, he was sentenced to 2.5 years in prison for a concealed weapons charge. After his release in June 1971, he attempted to make an NBA comeback, but never signed with the team. In August 1972, his birth mother was shot to death in an argument with her husband. At her funeral, Harding stood over her coffin for 15 minutes and instructed the funeral director on what he would want for his own funeral. On September 1st, Reggie was hanging out with Carl Scott, a former convict who would go with him when he went out on the town. Later that night, the two got into an argument after Carl slapped Reggie. Reggie then grabbed Carl by his collar and held him above his head, scolding him, saying, "Don't mess with the big fella." But he returned to the scene a few minutes later, holding a pistol. As he aimed it at Reggie, he looked down at the gun, thinking that his good friend wouldn't actually shoot him. "If you shoot me," Reggie said with a mocking smile, "shoot me in the head. I don't want to feel no pain." Scott pointed the gun at Reggie's head and pulled the trigger. Reggie looked up in disbelief. "Why? Why, man? You shot me." Scott fired another shot into Reggie's head and ran into a car that was waiting to take him away. Scott would hide out until he was finally arrested in April 1973, being charged in first-degree murder. Reggie Harding was a talented player, but he couldn't stay out of his own way. He consistently broke the rules, and he couldn't shake his drug addiction. Even after he squandered his basketball career, he hung out around the wrong people, and he was murdered for no reason. Although Reggie has his place in history as the first high schooler drafted into the NBA, his story is the prime example of what not to do when you reach that kind of status in society. Thank you for watching. I looked up this guy's story, and it's really crazy. He was a decent basketball player, but a lot of the off-the-court stuff really got me. The sexual assault really kind of got me. You did that to a 15-year-old girl, and then you got out of it by saying that it was consensual. I don't buy none of that. And then when you think about the effect that had on Florence after that, how her whole life was just a whirlwind of alcoholism, drug use, depression, poverty, how she died early too. I don't really have any sympathy for this guy. He was given a whole lot of chances anyway, because you're assaulting cops, you're consistently running around, not going to practice, you're threatening to shoot people. They gave him too many chances, if we're being honest. I would say rest in peace. He was murdered, he was unfairly murdered. I've seen some videos on the topic, him getting killed as karma for that. I don't want to wish that on nobody. I don't believe in karma coming to kill people. I don't want that. I mean, he was the first high schooler in the league, but his story is really sketchy. Thank you for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Hit that subscribe button if you're new to the channel. Turn my post notifications on if you haven't already. But thank you. Please be safe. Stay on the grind. I'm out. Peace.